everyone. So today is our officially the first lesson because the last one is just like overview of the class. All right. So in the next a couple of weeks, obviously, but right before the midterm, okay, we are basically just catching up with the basics about the C. Right before the midterm, we're going to talk about pointer, which is a little bit harder, but you already learned Java. You have the idea. But yeah, I would say the first half of the class should be quite straightforward. All right. I'm trying to make some connection between the C and the Java, so you can kind of have a better understanding because you already learned Java. But otherwise, again, that's very basic stuff. I'm expect you to actually do some exercise in the class. So next time, please bring your laptop. Today, it's very simple program. Maybe just write it on a paper. Should be fast, right? Yeah. Again, the assignment. If you want to just achieve 100% on your assignment, that's very easy. You can either internet search or using ChatGPT. You will get it. Like there's no way for me to tell you did it in person or using AI. Or I would say if you made a mistake, I will believe that you made it in person. Versus if you're doing 100%, that might be, I'm more worried. But those are very simple anyway. My point here is take the assignment as an opportunity for you to learn, right? You won't, if you really practice and you have pro questions, it's your opportunity to reach out to me for clarification, right? Because similar question would be asked in your exam. At that time, you won't have chance to ask anyone, right? So that's the point. Okay, so today we're going to talk about very, very elemental, essential stuff, such as variables, input, output, flow control, and we will talk about a few very simple programs using those things. Well, first of all, most classic one is Hello World, right? So we're looking to this one. We have already talked about last time why we learned C, right? We have talked about this as like a fundamental language. You are not likely going to program in C directly, but most of the language you're using will be based off C, so you will see a lot of familiarity, especially between Java and C, I would say. But C often is more efficient. If you are working on device system, let's say IoT device, like it has very limited computational resources, you might have to use C because again, it's more efficient. It means it can use less resources and do more operations essentially. That's because it has a lower access to the hardware. You don't lose a lot of resources doing this translation. Comparing to Java, all right, they have some similarity, but C is more, again, coded to the hardware level, while Java is more on the base of they wanted to make a program that be usable for any platform, right? To achieve that, rather to build different compiler, just like C did. C, for every different hardware, they need a different compiler. What Java did is they made a virtual machine that's kind of on top of the hardware, so that while you're writing the program on the Java, you don't have to worry about that of the hardware. But obviously, you lost some of the resources in between because you have to go through this virtual machine layer. Okay, let's take a look at the classic code, hello world. And the first line you can see is you need to include this. You need to include this standard IO library. All right, even just for the purpose of printing. All right, so that's actually again very similar to C. But if you have used other language such as Python, you will notice in Python, when you call the print, you don't need to call in any library. That's basic in the language. But in C, they on purposely exclude that from their language itself, rather to make it as a part of the library, right? So obviously in the library, you can make different type of functions and can do various things, but their point is they want to make sure the language itself is as simple as possible. So that's kind of a choice. You can either do as simple as possible or as comprehensive as possible. Because they choose the earliest and first way, that makes their life easier later on just to port it to different hardware, because you only worry about a small part of the functions. Anyway, so the first part of the code is always, not always, just because we're going to call this print, we're going to include this standard IO library, all right? Then you start the main function. Again, that's very, very similar to what Java is. Let's look at it, what the Java look like later. But then you will print it, all right? Notice here we use the printf function, and you have to add in this /n behind. Anyone know what is the /n? New line, yeah, great. But you might realize that you don't need to do that in Java. Or do you need to include this for printing a line in Java? Sorry? Red line? Sorry? Yeah, so if you use a print line, they already have a function for that, right? So with that, you don't have to add the new line symbol at the end. So basically, the function will add it for you. But otherwise, you can see it is very similar. You do have to call the function from a library, which is called system out. That's another library. So there's a lot of similarity, but the biggest thing different is print line will add the end of the line symbol for you, rather printf don't, right? So that's the thing you need to be careful about. All right, so yeah, sorry, I didn't tell you to bring the laptop last time, but if you do, please open one of this online programming platform, okay, which is online GDB. Well, if you have other platform you like which can do C, that's great. You can do that. But this just the one I find. All right, I didn't do extensive programming on that, but just for the basic stuff, it can do the work. Right. So Google search, or you can find my slides on the share folder. You can click the link there. By the way, I have already included the answer for every exercise in the slides. Don't look at it before we finish it. Okay. But yeah, first exercise that is open this link and then just code this. All right. You can copy paste from my slides. But this is just a PDF file, right? You might have some mistake happen during the copy and paste process. Trying to run it and see if you have encountered any issue. The main purpose here is just for you to familiar with this platform. Yeah, so once you open it up, it will have some default code, you just delete and then you just copy and paste from our slide, or you can archive it. Oh, that's a very good question. Yeah, but you should have something similar in Java as well. Yeah.
There should be like a function or something.
Okay. Yeah. 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 All right.
What is the
Yeah. All right. Good question. Yeah, if I can have your attention a little bit. So I have a question about what's the purpose of this return zero line, right? What did that do? Anyone knows what's the purpose of? Yeah.
Acknowledge that there's no issue. So the zero means complete without issue.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the reason. All right. So in this particular program, it doesn't things matter as long as you see the hello world, you feels like the program finished. But what if the program don't print out anything, but it did a bunch of calculation, it didn't just stop. Like then you don't know if that finished the work or not finished the work. Right? You want to have some symbol at the end, last line. Last line return something, so you read it, oh, they return zero, that means you have reached the last line. That's the whole point. All right. Yeah. All right. I think there might be a question in the chat. Let me. Yeah, thank you for pasting the code in the chat, which is great. Yeah, so open it up and then you just copy and paste the code inside. There is a run button. Okay, just run the code. And if you see the output is this, that means it's right. All right, so let me just do that quickly. Open this link. And I will copy and paste the code. Yeah, basically I just get rid of the entire part here and I just paste. Hopefully there's no issue. Well, I can fix the indentation so it's make it clear and nicer. And then I will just run the code and hopefully it will give me the right output. Okay, let's see. Maybe to do with my internet. No, should be good. Is it running on your side? Yeah. Maybe the website you think? Yeah. All right, thank you. Yeah. So you see the result shows up as expected. Then you just need to, well, for practice purpose only, just download the file. Here is the download icon on the top right, if you can see it. So right here in the middle now, then just click on it. And I will just say, okay, leave the page, that's fine. And it will give you a file called main.c, right? Okay, yeah, so that is the file you just programmed and you can use to submit your assignment. Yeah. The other thing you need to do is make a screenshot. All right. So in the screenshot, let's say you have just run the code, right? And you see this result. And maybe you can make it a little bit smaller because we have a very tiny code anyway. Then you just say snipping tool. Okay, this is Windows. I don't know about Mac, but you should have a way. And then you just take a screenshot of your code as well as the output. All right, so you save this as a JPEG file and upload it to your assignment as well. All right, two files. For every assignment, upload 2 files: the source code and the this screenshot. All right.
So we can use any other editor?
Yes, you can. You can use any other editor. No, that's fine. Yeah.
Just we
This
have to
will-
like send the source code and the source code file also, or just the code?
source code and screenshot.
Oh, okay, sure. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, yeah. All right. Yeah. So I will talk about the assignment a little bit later with more details, but this is the process. Okay. Any questions so far? You caught any difficulties, challenges? All right. So one thing you can actually try is to get rid of the indentation. It should still run. Although we recommend you to indent it just for yourself, for the programmer yourself to know. All right, yeah. So here is part kind of, if you're missing some symbols, you can try to get rid of the one of the semicolons, see what's the error message you will see, right? And then fix it just to see like how the compiler will give you the problem and how you solve it yourself. All right. So in the C, well, traditionally you have to compile the code. That means translate your C script into a machine code, right? And it become something .out, and you just run this file, and you will get the result. Okay, that's the traditional way. And now we all wrap it up into your IDE or the online platform, so you don't have to worry about it. So you don't have to manually type those commands like GCC / like a code standard, and as well as your program name, right? Like if you are using a Linux system, like a command line system, you might have to do that manually, but not for small program as ours. Yeah, similarly in Java, you have to compile as well. But again, if you're using IDE, you don't have to worry about them. All right, so now we're going to talk about variables and data types. So in C, the variable are actually quite a lot, but nowadays we don't use that many. I would say, yeah, some example like integer, floating point. Those are obviously two very common ones. Although nowadays we're using double more often, because double will be like double the floating range than the float, and then we also use char. So by the way, there's no string in C. Okay, so you cannot define a string. Well, you can, but it's in a form of a character. So it's array of character will be used as string. But there's no common building function is like get the length of the strings or get a trim the string. Those kind of things. You don't have that. So in C, we also have this while loop and for loop. Okay, let's take a look at this while loop first. Right. So in the while loop, in the while loop bracket, we have this condition, which means if this is true in the loop, in the bracket, if it's true in the loop, this will run. Otherwise, it will terminate. All right. So here is the example about printing a list of two numbers. All right. One number is in Fahrenheit, the other is in Celsius. So there's the formula in the middle. All right. This is the formula doing the calculation. And the main purpose of this exercise obviously let you know how you actually define the variables. So first of all, we needed to define those variables first. Again, just like Java. But if you used to use Python, you will realize that Python, you don't do that. You just start with defining the number directly. That saves you a little bit of time. But then after you define it, you assign the number with them, to initialize those numbers. And now we're going to this for loop. Okay, so you can see just for initialize all the variables, it takes you about 10 lines versus the while loop only takes you 4 lines. All right. So in the while loop, again, we're comparing two variables. One is the starting point, or because we're printing a list of temperature from 0 to 300, right, with a step of 20. So we are starting from 0 and keep adding the temperature until we're reaching the upper limit. For every step, we're going to convert the Fahrenheit to the Celsius and print it out, right? So doing the conversion, print it out, print out both, as well as step up. So here, another thing worth mentioning is about this print function. All right, so you can see in C language, the printing function is working as using this percentage sign, right? Percentage 4.0 means you need at least 4 number digits in front before the decimal point and nothing afterwards. The 0 here is nothing afterwards, is a floating point. So you define how the floating point will be represented. Similarly, if the second number is 6.1, that means 6 digits in front of the decimal point and 1 digit afterwards. So those percentage f are referring to one of the variables afterwards. So it's matching one to one. So the first floating points are coming from this Fahrenheit variable. And the second floating point is from this Celsius variable. Right? It seems a little bit weird, but it is how it is, how it looks like. All right, so now let's do a comparison and do the same code in C. All right, so in the C program, we, again, very similar to Java, we have initial value, a condition, and increment. That makes C is actually more suitable for our case. For our case, we're ranging from 0 to 300 with an increment of 20, right? So that works very well for us. So if you look at the code here, you see it's much more simpler because we don't have to define too much variables at the beginning. Only thing we need is the Fahrenheit, and we have initial value with 0 degree, and we will increment it by 20 degree every step until we reach 300. All right, and every time we just print it up. All right. So this printing part has a little bit condensed. You can actually do that in 2 steps. One is to calculate the Celsius. The other step is to print it out, right? We do that in one place. It might, again, be a little bit confusing, but the later part calculates the Celsius. All right. So anyone can tell me why I'm using this 5.0 divided by 9.0? Why I don't just do 5 divided by 9? Yeah. Again, that's very similar to Java. If you have to do that, otherwise you will get 0 as a result, right? Because it will be calculating integer rather than floating points. So we just did this thing here to make sure it gives you us a floating point. Then we multiplied it with some integer, which is fine, right? All right, so this here is just explain what's the difference. If you can pay attention to the third following slide, I will ask you some questions. Okay. So what is the difference between 1 and 4? All right. Could you anyone summarize or just read the slides for me? Give me one.
initialize and same.
Yeah.
I look at like patient to be go for implement and whatever.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Yeah, and for a point, so just for those online who didn't hear it, yeah, so while loop is designed for automatically increment a number, right? So if you always have a number to increment, such as you go through an array or a list, that would be very ideal. While is more flexible. You can definitely do that, but you can do any other things, right? Yeah. So your condition could be more complex. Yeah, the indentation, again, the indentation is just for your reading purpose, but we do definitely encourage you to keep it clear, right? Okay, now let's do exercise, which is to modify the program. So we will print this table in a reverse order. All right, so here you go. This is the code. This is, yeah, the for code. Please try to reverse it, right? So we print, well, this one print out from 0 to 300, right? And the reverse it, so we will print from 300 to 0, right? Just for practice purpose. Yeah, please go to page 22 to copy the code. Yeah, if you are using paper, you just rewrite this four bracket, right? That's the only line you need to change. This is the only line, right? So yeah, just to change it, so it will be reversed. When you clean it up from 300 to 0, instead of 0 wrong. All right, so yeah, basically you're just trying to replace those two number and also change this plus sign to minus sign, right? All right, so let me show you this answer here. So you start from 300 and round N2 is still greater than 0 or equal to 0, right? And then otherwise you will keep reduce it by 20 every time. All right, any question before we move on? All right. Yeah. The purpose of exercise is one for exercise. The other is keep you awake. Okay. This is very boring stuff. I aware of that. Yeah. But just to let you do something so I can get your attention. All right. So next part we're going to talk about is constant number. All right. There are some value. Let's say in the previous example, so we have some value, say 20. All right. This 9.0, well, 9.0 is a little bit off, but let's talk about the 20. Okay, I just got a question. Say, oh, why is minus 20? I say, yeah, that's part of the exercise. There's no reason. All right, but imagine if you're making a code like this. Okay, you write this 20, and someone else, okay, your code, they will understand like why you put 20 there, what 20 means, right? So we have talked about, well, you may have talked about in the past. In Java, you want to make a variable meaningful, right? You make a variable, you won't call it A, B, C. No one would know what that means, right? Have given name, like here, F, A, H, R, people can understand this Fahrenheit. So what you could do is create another variable called increment, right? Integer increment equals to 20. So here, every time you minus increment. So that makes your code more readable. Okay, that makes sense. However, there is one risk. One risk here, because you call this variable, that means it could be changed by accidentally, right? So some other program, other function in your code, they also use this variable name, but they might change this number to 10 in some cases. So that causes some bugs in your code, right? You wanted to make your code readable by giving a name, but then you are under the risk of this variable got changed by other program that will create some problem. So to solve this problem, you can use a constant. A constant is a special type of variable, which obviously is its name. You cannot change the number. All right. So you can use the symbol define name variable that in that way, right? So you can define this increment 20, right? Otherwise, this is called magic number, right? Magic number means no one knows what that means. All right. So in our previous case, we have used 0, 320. Those are all meaningless, right? So in this case, we will replace it with those constant number, and then also give us a chance to write comment beside of it. Having this, it will make your code way more readable, right? So you can see, oh, this is the lower limit of our table, upper limit, and this step size. Right? Okay, yeah, again, just to define a constant variable, we'll use this sharp define and with your variable name. All right. By the way, you should notice that the constant variable are often in uppercase, right? All uppercase. Like, that's a convention. So when people look at your code again, they will see, oh, okay, this is a constant number because it's all uppercase. Just to keep consistency, make people easier to understand your code. All right. Yeah, so in Java, you can do the same, right? In call final integer, then you can assign a number. All right, so now let's do another exercise. We want to modify this program again here. This one or the previous one, either one was okay. To add a header. Okay, adding a heading. Heading means like when you talk about table, right, you have to tell what's the first column is, the second column is, just to add those two things on top of it. Okay, just give a try and see how you can do it. Basically, just another line of print, right, before you start this table. Right, again, you can either from the program here on page 29 or continue your previous program. You have already there. Just add another line there to include a heading.